Coming up, despite the pandemic, labor shortages, and supply chain chaos, Indiana landed some big economic development deals and jobs in 2021. Indiana Secretary of Commerce Brad Chambers is here with details and what might be in the pipeline for 2022. And big workforce news in northern Indiana, the South Bend Elkhart region launching an apprenticeship training program and a $1.1 million fund. Details on the Labs for Industry Futures and Transformation, or LIFT network. Plus,
and also coming up, the fourth installment of Endangered Indiana marks the final repeat listing from 2020.
I'm Mary Rachel Rudman in downtown Lafayette, where one of the city's historic 19th century neighborhoods is rapidly vanishing.
A look back at the FALLEY-O'GARA-PYKE house.
Details on those stories and much more ahead on this edition of Inside Indiana Business. Hello and welcome to Inside Indiana Business. I'm Gerry Dick. Well, Chief Executive Magazine ranks Indiana as the 5th best state in the nation for business, first in the Midwest. But 2021 presented some major challenges for Indiana and other states pursuing economic development deals with investment and jobs. How did Indiana fare this year, and what's ahead for 2022? For some answers, I am pleased to welcome to the set Indiana Secretary of Commerce Brad Chambers. And Brad, as always, welcome to the show.
Good to be here. Thank you.
Okay, you've been on the job now 6 or 7 months or so. You've been drinking out of a fire hose, I'm sure, with a lot of activity. You know, I mentioned all of those obvious challenges, the pandemic and other things that have factored in here. But 2021, we were just talking off camera, you're saying the numbers reflect a pretty decent year.
Yeah, I've been on the job since July 6th, so we're about 5 months in, and it has been the fire hose is still parked outside my office. Yes, but excuse me. But besides that, man, it's been a busy year at the IEDC. So not only have I showed up and been on the job for 5 months, but the place is on roller skates, right? The business economy in Indiana, and I think it's really is robust, and I think it's really because of our decades-long reputation as a place to do business. Mm-hmm. So Indiana businesses have the confidence of Indiana's stability, and they're investing. You know, we were all, you know, in the pandemic, we were uncertain, and I think people are more certain now, and they're more confident.
Yeah, how about some of the numbers? Because I know as you look at the metrics and what you measure for success, when you look at CapEx and some of those numbers, they're surprisingly good.
They are surprisingly good. Average hourly wage is up, which is a really important metric for us on the transactions that have happened in 2021. The other, and that results in total payroll being up in the state of Indiana. It's over $1.6 billion, I think. So that's a big number. Otherwise, CapEx, total investment by businesses, foreign and domestic, is up 23% in 2021. Mm-hmm. That's a big number. That means confidence in our state.
Yeah, a number of deals were closed this year. Big ones like Toyota in the spring, which was an $800+ million investment, 1,400 jobs. But interestingly enough, another focus area I know that the state is going to have heading into 2022 is energy. A huge solar project in northwest Indiana, Pulaski and Starke counties.
That's right. Yes, you know, we have a vision and a focus at the IEDC, and it's our 5E strategy. And one of those E's is the energy transition. And as I said at the Engage Indiana conference, the energy transition is here. And what are we going to do about it as a state? And are we going to lead, or are we just going to participate? Well, we have been the recipient of one of the largest, I think it's the largest solar installation in the United States of America in northern Indiana, and that's the Mammoth Solar. It's $1.5 billion investment.
So that is a reflection, but who would think that the largest solar installation would be in Indiana? A reflection, I think, of the potential that Indiana has in that sector going forward? That's
right. If you drive, you know, from here to Chicago, you'll see windmills as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we have an interesting role to play in the energy transition between wind and solar, and that's starting to develop. And so that's why we need to have a cohesive plan around the energy transition.
I know another big focus is this READY initiative, a $500 million initiative that is the next iteration really of an effort to regionalize the economy and projects. $500 million, but you had far more than that in terms of interest and applications, right? That's
right. You know, the READY program was, it's really innovative, and hats off to the legislature and to the governor on this. And this was passed in 2020. It was a $500 million investment in north to south, east to west communities throughout Indiana. We have been accepting applications for the $500 million since June. 92 counties participated and formed 17 regions. And those regions have done just a terrific job coming up with creative ideas on how to invest these dollars in their community. The good news as well is $500 million was appropriated by the legislature and the governor, but we had demand for $1.5 billion of investments.
Wow, that makes quite a statement. And I know the announcement on that coming December 14. Hey, before we go, you were the keynote speaker, as you mentioned, at the Engage Indiana event put on by the IEDC and our partners at the Indianapolis Business Journal. Engagement, so important. Now, are you seeing that engagement begin to really happen and take place around the state?
Yeah, our focus at the state is you know, quality over quantity, and we want businesses and you know, to engage in our communities, and it's about the fabric of Indiana and continuing to shoot higher and again, just quality over quantity. But Indiana is a fantastic place to do business, and so you know, I think it's time for a little bit more quality over quantity. But yes, people are engaging, and that's a true statement.
Very good. Well, surprisingly, a busy 2021. Yeah. Looking forward to a busier 2022 as well. Brad Chambers, Secretary of Commerce, as always, thanks.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Well, another shot in the arm for Central Indiana, the Central Indiana economy, the Big Ten Football Championship, and all of the events surrounding it this weekend in downtown Indianapolis. One of those events, the annual St. Elmo Shrimp Cocktail Eating Contest. The defending champ is my guest this week on the Business and Beyond podcast. Joey Chestnut has gobbled down everything from hot dogs to Twinkies to hard-boiled eggs to climb to the top of professional eating's food chain. The St. Elmo competition, well, it's a big reason why he now calls Westfield home.
Every time I'd come to Indiana, I'd end up staying a little bit longer and just have a good time. And it was, it just felt natural. And I liked the area. So, and I was ready to sell my house in San Jose, and I was ready for a little change. And this felt right.
Much more, including some comments about Indianapolis International Airport. That's all coming up with Joey Chestnut on the Business and Beyond podcast. To check it out, go to InsideIndianaBusiness.com and click on the subscribe tab. Coming up next, a signature workforce development initiative in the South Bend Elkhart region. More on the LIFT network and why it is viewed as potentially transformational for Northern Indiana. It's time to go inside innovation, brought to you by Allegion, pioneering safety. Well, the LIFT network is an advanced industry and manufacturing sector initiative in the South Bend Elkhart region, bringing together business, community, and educational partners, including the University of Notre Dame, all in a unique effort to help the region transform to a digital and more automated economy. Now, the effort is being supported by a major grant from Lilly Endowment, and with more on the hands-on training programs aimed at reskilling adult workers and those especially important in Northern Indiana, those industries. Pleased to welcome the Director of Education and Workforce Initiatives for the South Bend Elkhart region and that regional partnership, Leighton Johnson. Leighton, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Gary.
Hey, start out, because this is really part of a big program. You've got an apprenticeship program you've launched publicly recently, but it's part of a bigger LIFT network, LIFT initiative that was announced with a major Lilly Endowment gift in 2019. Talk about that initiative and what it's all about.
Yeah, I mean, one, thanks for asking that, Gary. I mean, that sort of initial investment is key to just everything that's happening right now and a lot of the transformation in our region. So as you stated, April 2019, the Lilly Endowment made a $42 million transformational gift to the University of Notre Dame and to the South Bend Elkhart region. And that collaborative was established to formalize the innovation assets, research R&D assets, educational and workforce training assets across our entire region within Elkhart, Marshall, and St. Joseph counties. So that gift allowed the University of Notre Dame to collaborate with the South Bend Elkhart Regional Partnership, serving as a sort of anchor or node for economic and workforce development activities in our region. And it brought together just a broad swath of our Regional Workforce Board, nonprofit entities, the 9 regional higher ed colleges, universities, and more. And aims of that grant are to improve the economic resiliency of our region and to further embrace digital transformation and automation, others within our real sectors.
Hey, Leighton, one of the reasons for that grant, I know Elkhart was identified by the Brookings Institution as one of the regions most at risk in the country of job loss from automation, from digital technology.
Yeah, so Mark Murrow, him and his research team at the Brookings Institute, they released this report in 2018, 2019 that rated the Elkhart Goshen MSA as the 3rd highest as far as susceptibility to automation, with the Kokomo MSA being the #1. And that really meant that a lot of the occupations in our manufacturing industry sectors are largely routine task-oriented, and those routine task-oriented occupations largely are lost as you automate processes within companies. And as much as 20,000 assemblers and fabricators work within the manufacturing sector, and it's shown to have an 11% decline over the next 5 years in those occupations specifically. Hey,
give us a quick snapshot of the lab, the Notre Dame lab that's part of this, because Notre Dame very much involved in this this process.
Yeah, so I mean, in short, the grant was made to the University of Notre Dame, and through their stewardship and sort of foresight, the university recognized that this is to address these big challenges, these big economic challenges. It's going to take a collaborative ecosystem and network approach, because Notre Dame, through industry labs, is leading the charge around many of the industry advancement and transformation activities. So the industry labs associated at the University of Notre Dame is led by Tom Fuja, faculty director, and Scott Ford, managing director. They've begun to hire a team of engineers and residents, and also working with InFocus and fellows, and they're going out to companies, benchmarking opportunities and ultimately providing a roadmap for digital transformation.
Hey, Leighton, we're run out of time, but I would give just a quick 15-second overview of this apprenticeship program. I know it's a big deal that you've launched a $1.1 million fund as well. What's it all about? Got to be quick.
So essentially, so a workforce training initiative. We provide the education training subsidies, and companies are training robotics technicians, maintenance mechanics, CNC operators, and we're really looking to close the gap between the technical skill needs that companies have and the supply of workers within our economy.
We will do much more on this in the future. Leighton Johnson, Director of Education and Workforce Initiatives at the South Bend Elkhart Regional Partnership. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
All right. Well, an eye-catching historic landmark in Tippecanoe County could be on the verge of extinction. Our Mary Rachel Redmond will have more coming up. Well, part 4 of our Endangered Indiana series this week takes us to Tippecanoe County, where we revisit Lafayette's 40-square block downtown that faces an uncertain future and, in some cases, demolition. Around Indiana reporter Mary Rachel Redmond joins us now in studio with more. Mary Rachel.
Well, that's right, Gary. Lafayette's 40-square block downtown is considered one of the Midwest's most intact examples of 19th century urban development. But a bevy of new economic development projects is threatening the historic fabric of downtown Lafayette's unique neighborhoods, just like the National Register listed St. Mary Historic District's FALLEY-O'GARA-PYKE House.
Most typically associate Lafayette with Purdue University, given its location just a mere 2 miles from campus. But the city of just over 72,000 has its own identity, with a downtown steeped in architectural history dating back over 150 years.
We haven't always done a great job of showing the rest of the state, hey, we've got this really intact 19th century core, walkable, cobblestone alleys.
But demolition of Lafayette's historic downtown homes is rapidly increasing, like this FALLEY-O'GARA-PYKE house that was built in 1884.
The house currently threatened is an example of what's happened to many of the historic homes in this immediate area that have been acquired by the diocese and demolished for either parking or proposed expansion of St. Mary Cathedral.
Lafayette's Old City is a fabric. Think of it like a mosaic or tapestry. This is one of the more ornate tiles or threads in it. You'll notice there's tulips in the cornice. There's tulips carved on the stonework in the front, grapes at the base of the arch. And those are all really unique architectural features that you don't see built today. Even if we go around some of the other neighborhoods, they don't have this level of customized detailing on them. So losing this house would not just be a blow for the neighborhood, it would be a loss of craftsmanship, a piece of Lafayette's old history.
And this historic 19th century neighborhood also has special ties to Purdue University, where historic buildings like this one you see behind me housed fraternities and sororities through the early 20th century.
A lot of the fraternities were on this side of the river. West Lafayette did not have a lot of the infrastructure, the water, the gas that Lafayette had in the 19th century. In fact, in the 1880s, West Lafayette sought to be annexed by Lafayette to pay for that infrastructure, but Lafayette declined. You know, hindsight's 20/20 though. So that's kind of its relation to Purdue. A lot of the students in the early 20th century lived in neighborhoods like this. There was a lot of fraternities up this street, in that neighborhood down there.
And the Director of Economic Development for the City of Lafayette wants to use its rich architectural history as an economic driver for future projects.
We've used historic preservation as an economic development tool for some time. Our downtown has lots of historic structures, and it's been one of our greatest assets.
In a perfect world, Lafayette's Old City would be a protected historic district, and where we would be able to work with owners to find solutions that are feasible but sensitive. And that way, you know, as the city develops, as it grows, we're not doing it at the cost of our local history, architecture, and the unique thing that drew people in the first place.
A year later, the FALLEY-O'GARA-PYKE house is still in limbo. I talked to Tommy Kleckner of Indiana Landmarks this week. He told me he reached out to the diocese in January, but hasn't been able to set up a meeting to discuss the future of the Pike house. One bright spot, though, since our visit last fall, a number of properties within the St. Mary's Historic District have been given local protection by the city of Lafayette. On a related note, since Indiana Landmarks debuted its 10 most endangered list in 1991, demolition has only claimed 19 of the nearly 150 sites that have made the list. That's close to a 90% success rate over 30 years. Not too shabby. Gary?
All right, great story. Thanks, Mary Rachel. Also making headlines around Indiana this week, the Fort Wayne City Council has approved a resolution to create a committee to draft a subpoena for officials from Red River Waste Solutions. Our partners at WPTA TV report council members have been seeking answers regarding the trash collection company's recent bankruptcy filing. The resolution comes after Red River failed to show up to multiple council meetings. 3 decades after Sunny Lou Williams' grandmother launched technology solutions company TECHSERV, business is still booming. We'll have more on that coming up. Well, 3 generations of women in the Lou family have led TECHSERV, with 2022 marking the company's 30th year in business. The IT solutions management firm has evolved over those 3 decades. And with details on the entrepreneurial journey and what's next, I'm pleased to be joined by TECHSERV President Sunny Lou Williams. And Sunny, really great to see you. Congratulations on this big milestone.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, okay. Project management, technology solutions company. Give us a thumbnail sketch, really, of what TECHSERV is all about.
Yeah, so we are doing project management and consulting in higher ed, healthcare, and also in public safety. And the work that we're doing bridges very nicely the intersection of federally funded, state-funded innovations in public policy and the business acumen, technology, and marketing services needed to really propel those bettering community programs forward.
Yeah. So your grandmother founded the company 30 years ago. You were working for Telamon and were able to acquire essentially a division of Telamon. It's become part of TECHSERV and a very important part. Talk about that process and what that meant to you and being able to have that opportunity to make that move.
You know, it's funny, I didn't actually know that my grandmother had founded the company until we were looking at stock ledgers back in 2019 when we were doing equity transfers. And that just deep dived into this wonderful kind of storytelling opportunity with my grandmother, my mother, and it's been a wonderful legacy. And I'm very thankful for having had that opportunity to continue the business.
Yeah.
Under my
Well, I was going to say, I know an important part of the process and the journey was when President Reagan signed the Women's Business Ownership Act. You said that had a profound impact, too, on the company.
Absolutely. I think with that piece of legislation, that policy really garnered more additional opportunity to participate in business. And I think being the entrepreneurial mindset that my grandmother had at the time, she said, like, this is a opportunity. What can we do with this? And so TECHSERV was born out of not only that piece of legislation, but looking at how to take a business in service mode in support of other communities and constituencies that didn't understand yet how to start a business without the technologies at the time, without the understanding of actually delivering their services and having this be a new entrepreneurship model for everyone, especially women in business.
Okay, you got a big year coming up next year, 30 years in business. I know you got a lot of big events, big things planned. Can you give us a preview or a hint of what might be ahead?
Yeah, we're very excited. We're going to be delving into new-to-me technology, non-fungible tokens, and we're partnering with the Started Up Foundation, which I'm on the board of, so shout out to that group. And we're going to be launching an event called NFT Vegas. So this is the first you've heard of it, live on your show.
Okay.
And we are going to be educating the public sphere about what NFT is and how NFT is really a support on digital rights management, and how it can be taken into education through the monetization of everything from webinars to curriculum, and how it can help in healthcare when we look at the tracking of that token and how public health consumers are learning and grasping more about education in how do I take better care of my health.
Oh, great. Thanks for breaking that news on our show. We'll look forward to that and covering that in the weeks and months ahead. Sunny Lou Williams, president of TECHSERV, congratulations on the milestone. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks so much.
All right. Coming up on our next half hour, the opioid epidemic in East Central Indiana, how the pandemic really compounded the problem, and what Purdue and IU are doing together to help. Well, Blackford County is a hotspot in Indiana's opioid epidemic. The overdose death rate in the rural area north of Muncie was double the state's average during the peak of the opioid misuse in Indiana. Two of the biggest names in Indiana are now combining forces, though, to help. Business of Health reporter Kylie Valletta has more. Kylie.
Thank you, Gary. Two of the state's largest organizations, Purdue University and Indiana University Health, are spearheading a new effort in Blackford and Jay counties. Purdue landed a $1 million federal grant to lead a new local effort called the Consortium for Opioids Response Engagement East Central Indiana, or CORE ECI. It's dedicated to battling substance abuse locally, an even more critical effort after the isolation and economic impacts of COVID. And joining me now to tell us more about the project is Dave HYATT, president of IU Health Blackford Hospital, and Melanie CLINE, director of Purdue Healthcare Advisors. Thank you both for being on the show today.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Dave, let's start with you. These areas are just northeast of Muncie, very rural areas. Talk about the need for this project in this area in particular.
Sure. When we think about Jay and Blackford counties, both are very rural areas, small populations, but as you heard from Gerry, they've been dramatically impacted by the opioid epidemic. We are health professional shortage areas, which means that based on our population, we don't have enough healthcare access for our population. So while we try to provide that access, we do have some gaps, especially in that behavioral health. But what's unique to us is we have two counties right next to each other, both with IU Health hospitals, IU Health Blackford and IU Health Jay. And thanks to Purdue, we also have Purdue Extension offices in each county, which have really made this a great opportunity to work collaborative, not just in our own communities, but across county lines, because we are a region and we aren't islands.
And you mentioned that collaboration, 7 community organizations involved. Of course, we don't have time to name them all. Melanie, explain big picture. What is everyone working together to do? Tell us some of the things that the consortium is doing right now.
So yes, the consortium is working across sectoral groups with the goal of collaborating and really lifting up both communities in relationship to prevention, treatment, and recovery for substance use disorder.
And Dave, you mentioned off camera, a big part of this is reducing the stigma. And Melanie, I'm sure you can comment on that too. And also really combining forces within the community. Can you give us just a little more detail about those two things, Dave?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, when we think about substance abuse recovery, you know, it's not going to be solved by any one organization. We can't legislate ourselves out of this problem. It's not up to law enforcement alone to solve this problem. And we as a healthcare system can't solve it on our own. So the thing that this grant's going to help us do is to bring different community players together so that we can all take a look and be honest with ourselves about this problem that we're all facing and we're all affected by, because it affects every walk of life. When you come to these communities, not a single person hasn't been affected by this epidemic. So when we think about the first steps with that, it's coming together as a group, but we have to reduce the stigma associated with substance abuse. You know, there's not a stigma around diabetes or other healthcare conditions, and we have to treat substance abuse disorders just like those others. Because if people have these issues, it's hard enough to get to a point where you want to seek treatment, but we've got to make sure that these people don't feel that they're threatened by their community. We want to make sure that access to care is easy to get, because without that and without the community support, we're never going to make a dent in this problem.
And Melanie, opioids is in the name of this consortium, but you mentioned the drug problem is actually shifting away from opioids in that area now. You say it's more about the underlying causes of addiction issues. Can you share your perspective about that?
Sure. You know, I've worked in East Central Indiana for the last couple of years on the substance use challenges. And, you know, when we embarked on the work, it was really funded around opiates. And what we now know, as we've gotten into the community for a couple months, that the problem has moved to methamphetamine. And so, frankly, chasing the drug or the type of substance is not going to really help us to address the issue. So we're really looking at the underlying causes for why there are addiction issues, and we really want to focus our efforts on that, because we believe that that's going to be the sustainable opportunity we have to make a meaningful impact on the problem.
And when you say underlying issues, you mean like health disparities in the community, correct?
Underlying issues around stress, poverty, child abuse. Generally, you know, addiction problems it's a problem of childhood, starts in childhood. And so we really want to look at all the underlying causes for what the family stress is impacting on the child's development and the family, and really look to ways to intervene and interrupt those cycles of addiction that are so common across the country, but particularly we're seeing that in our rural communities.
Dave, just a few seconds left, but I think most people don't think of Purdue and IU Health as rural organizations, but you say both of these places really have a rural presence in Indiana, right?
Oh, absolutely, Kylie. When you think about IU Health or Purdue, you know, we're two of the largest organizations in this state. And a lot of people think that's Indianapolis and West Lafayette. But IU Health is one of the largest providers of rural health care to Hoosiers. And it's in our mission to make Indiana one of the healthiest states. And that starts in our rural areas and improving access to care. And we're so excited, you know, I didn't know it until a couple of years ago that Purdue's got a location in every county in Indiana. So they're a perfect partner for us in this rural work. And we're just absolutely excited to work together on this as two of the great big organizations in the state of Indiana.
All right, Dave with IU Health and Melanie with Purdue, thank you both for being on the show today, and best of luck with the consortium.
Happy to. Thank you, Kylie.
Thank you.
Gerry, back to you.
All right, Kylie, thank you. Well, when Central Indiana high school students step into a J. Everett Light Career Center class, they're in for a hands-on learning experience designed to prepare them for future careers and economic independence, a bridge really between school and the workforce. The center is based at North Central High School in Indianapolis, but also serves high schools in Hamilton and Boone counties. For more, I'm pleased to be joined by J. Everett Light Career Center Director and Principal Shawn Wright-Browner. And Shawn, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, career and technical education certainly is in vogue now, is in focus, a lot of interest in it. The J. Everett Light Career Center there at North Central has been in existence, believe it or not, for some 50 years. It's really a mainstay there. Give us a thumbnail description, Shawn, if you could, about what the center does and how it really connects with students and the workforce.
We provide opportunities for students to earn college credit as well as a certification, an industry-approved state certification. And then when they are completers, when they complete the program, they can go out and earn a high wage in a high-demand job right out of high school. And that is just record-breaking enrollment right now. We're getting students out there in the workforce, and we're joining them into that area of career focus that they are interested in.
Yeah, and really you are a pipeline in this whole challenge we see with workforce and getting more and more talent into the workforce pipeline, preparing students. Perhaps they want to go on to college and additional education, but you're training them to go right into the workforce if they so desire right after high school.
Exactly. With the next level programs of studies, that's an emphasis in what we do, so we can get them completed and a certification in 1 year, which is pretty awesome. Some of our programs do take 2 years, such as cosmetology, obviously, but we want to make sure that they are filling that employability gap in Marion County and staying within their communities.
Yeah, talk about that, because some of these careers, and welding as an example, big shortage nationwide of welders. Give me an example of what a young guy or gal can do coming out of high school and going into a welding career as an example.
Well, once they complete their programs of studies, we do have job fairs where we are heavily recruited by the industry, especially with the shortage of employees now. But once they complete their programs of studies, they can easily make $50,000, $60,000 a year with benefits. So that's pretty amazing for an 18, 19-year-old student to make that kind of money. And over their lifetimes, they are definitely increasing their earning potential.
Yeah, and your footprint, your reach extends beyond North Central, right? Because as I mentioned in the introduction, you have students coming in from, I think, charter schools as well as schools in Boone County and Hamilton County as well.
Yes, not only just homeschool students are enrolled at J. Everett Light Career Center, but we have students from Indiana School for the Blind, Indiana School for the Deaf. So we are open to any student who wants to earn college credit and a certification while in high school.
As you think back, as I say, back in the day, you know, to vocational education, things have changed a lot, and there really is a refocus on the importance of the skills and these careers and what they can mean for young people.
I think one of the focus that has supported us is the new graduation pathways. And part of the graduation pathways is that they can complete one of what we call the 3 boxes, and if they earn a certification, they can check off that. And there are several other aspects that are part of the graduation pathways that support career technical education. So we've seen a increased enrollment in the years I've been here. We've doubled our enrollment through that marketing process. But we also offer strong programs with highly qualified teachers. For instance, in our health careers program, we obviously have registered nurses who decided they wanted to be a teacher. So we train them to be a teacher, and they are highly qualified practitioners. So we have people who come from the field who are teaching our students to get ready to go into the field and again, earn that high wage and high demand job.
Yeah, I should mention you are right now in the enrollment season. You talk about enrollment being very strong. As you get into this and are in this enrollment season, what does that entail, and how can folks connect with the center?
Yes, the students who want to enroll in Gerry Career Center they need to see their counselor immediately. We have enrollment forms going out to those students, and we do have a virtual open house next Thursday from 6 to 7, and we did send out thousands and thousands of flyers to all of our students at all of our schools. And not only that, we get support from Hamilton County schools because our enrollment has grown so much that we actually have programs at Fishers, at HSC. Instead of the students coming here, we actually have teachers out there. So that's just how huge this program has become for Area 24 Career Center, which is Gerry.
Yeah, amazing success story with big impact and a conduit certainly to the workforce pipeline. Shauna Wright, Brownlee, Director and Principal of the J. Everett Light Career Center. Thanks very much for joining us, and keep in touch, because what you do there I know is very important in the whole workforce equation. So thanks for joining us.
And I appreciate you recognizing us and for what we do. All
right, thanks. We'll talk to you soon. Well, the RV industry continues on a roll. The RV Industry Association's October survey of manufacturers finds RV shipments totaled more than 58,000 units. That's an increase of 22.5% compared to the same period last year. Now, the association, which has an office in Elkhart, says the total was the highest on record for any month, passing last month's record number. The association also says the industry is on track to meet or exceed the current 2021 shipment forecast of more than 577,000 annual units. Well, the Big Ten Football Championship is on the line this weekend at Lucas Oil Stadium. Why downtown Indy businesses are bracing for a much-needed bump to the bottom line. Well, as Indianapolis hosts the Big Ten Football Championship for the 11th consecutive year this weekend, the Indiana Sports Corporation and host committee are doing everything they can to ensure the big game remains replete with special events and stays here in the city. Bill Benner has more in this week's Inside Indiana Sports. Bill.
Gary, thanks. Since its inception, the Big Ten has made Indianapolis and Lucas Oil Stadium its home for the conference championship game, and in usual fashion for such events, Indy has made it more than just a game. And joining us today to discuss the overall impact of the weekend, as well as look to the possible future of the game, is Steve Sander, co-chair of the local organizing committee. And Steve, we welcome you to the program. We're talking on the air. This is always intended to be much more than a game, but a celebration of Big Ten football.
It really is. We started this with the vision of making Indianapolis the centerpiece, the home of the Big Ten football championship for as long as they want to have the game. That's our hope. We've had it the first 11 years, and we expect that we'll do well in the bid process to keep it hopefully forever, because it is a celebration of Big Ten football, and we are the perfect host. We're right in the middle of Big Ten country.
And as you mentioned, we don't know about the future of the game, 2022 and beyond. Certainly there's, Indianapolis will be very hopeful. You mentioned, before we went on the air, Atlanta has made the SEC championship. It's one of its signature events. And of course, that's also true for Indianapolis and the Big Ten football championship.
Yeah, the Atlanta model is great. People enjoy going to Atlanta, no matter if you're an SEC fan, you go to Atlanta to watch the SEC football championship. It doesn't really matter who's playing. And we're seeing a lot of that the last 5 or 6 years in Indy. You walk around town, you see people wearing Big Ten gear from all 14 schools. And that just puts a smile on our face, because we're building this into it's a Big Ten event. It's not about Michigan versus Ohio or Ohio State versus Wisconsin. It's Big Ten football, and this is our chance to celebrate what was an amazing year.
Yeah, Michigan and Iowa here. Michigan for the first time, which was surprising to me in my faulty memory, but huge economic impact for downtown hotels, restaurants, even spreading out to the burbs. I mean, this is a much needed weekend as we continue to recover from the pandemic.
No, we expect over $20 million in economic impact. Hotels are booked solid. Tickets are sold out. Restaurants are full. It's hard to get a reservation. People will be clamoring for the bar seats at St. Elmo's. That's the only place you can walk in and get a meal there. But it's going to be an amazing weekend. The energy and the electricity in town has been great, and it's a big event in the Indianapolis calendar.
And once again, part of Indianapolis is not so secret sauce anymore. The volunteer corps, of which you and Melanie Green lead up as co-chairs of the Big Ten Organizing Committee. But again, our volunteer base, that's something that's not replicated in
I don't know another city that has anything close to what Indianapolis has, and the number of committed volunteers that show up and do whatever job is asked of them. We had you doing laundry at the Final Four.
And you were doing laundry during March Madness.
So I mean, when you get Bill Benner behind the laundry department, anyone's willing to do anything, and that's something when we talk to the Big Ten officials and we talk to NCAA people. I mean, it is something that we really do stand out from any other city.
And Steve, the Big Ten staff, they love coming here. I mean, this is not like they have to set up shop in some distant locale. They are so familiar with Indianapolis through the Big Ten championships, the men's and women's basketball tournaments, and a lot of other events.
Absolutely. They've had some turnover in the Big Ten, and they've been very grateful that they've been able to come here where we know exactly what we're doing. We have experienced volunteers. A lot of the game operations people have been here all 11 games. It's a really great resource for them to have the kind of support our volunteers and then the staff at Sports Corp, who are just, I don't know how they do all that they do. It's 25 people who make such a difference for our city. People like Melanie and I, we're figureheads. They're in Craig Youst and McKella. They are in there doing the hard work. Brett Kramer, the list. I mean, 25 amazing people.
Hey, well, as we wrap up, just quickly, there's a youth component that's taking place this weekend. You're training future officials, and these are like 14 and up, and it couldn't come at a better time when there's an officiating shortage statewide, nationwide.
That's one of the things I love, that Molly Powell's in charge of all the youth initiatives at Sports Corp. And for the last few years, every event we do has a youth component to it, and a lot of times that's become training officials or training lifeguards. When we've had the Division 1, 2, and 3 swimming championships, they're training lifeguards, and then Indy Parks has agreed to hire the lifeguards to get trained at a swimming event. And hoping for the same thing here. I think this is the third year we've done age 14 and up football officials to come in and get certified and learn, and those jobs pay pretty well for a kid.
Absolutely.
So I think we're really proud of what that program's doing under Molly.
Well, Steve Sander, again, thanks for coming on. Your 7th year as co-chair of the Big Ten Organizing Committee, and I know we are having a great Big Ten celebration. Thanks for being on the program.
Yep.
And Gerry, back to you.
All right, Bill, thank you. Well, one of the marquee events surrounding that Big Ten football championship, the annual St. Elmo Shrimp Eating Contest. And the king of snarfing down all that shrimp and famous hot sauce is my guest this week on the Business and Beyond podcast. Joey CHESTNUT grew up in California's Bay Area, played in the marching band in high school, and has a civil engineering degree. This world-famous eating champ now calls Westfield home. I asked him about Twinkies, hard-boiled eggs, his favorite competition, and that famous St. Elmo shrimp cocktail sauce. Yeah, the first time I had that horseradish explosion, it's not like a pepper spice. It's almost like it's weird. The way it hits you so hard, and then it goes away, and then you wonder, was I exaggerating? Was I just being a baby? And then you try it again. I was like, and it still makes you cry again. And during the contest, it's going to slow me down in the beginning, and then hopefully I can just learn to deal with it. And I'll just cry throughout the contest and keep going. I remember I did 141 hard-boiled eggs in 8 minutes.
Twinkies, 121 Twinkies in 8 minutes. There's been, I did deep fried asparagus. I think I did 13 pounds of deep fried asparagus, which is actually delicious. They put some Parmesan cheese on top. It was one of the tastiest contests there is. Ribs, I did 13 pounds of rib meat, and another really tasty contest. A couple times, a lot of wing contests I've done. I've done like 176 wings in 12 minutes. And the wings are fun. If they're cooked right, it's a fun contest. My favorite contest is hot dogs. Fourth of July, the atmosphere is insane, and it's almost, I get goosebumps thinking about it, and I'm willing to push myself so hard, and the crowd won't let me slow down. So I love. It's weird because naturally I'm a really shy guy, but in these contests I feed off the energy of the crowd and the audience, and they really push me.
Great conversation with world-famous food-eating champion and now Westfield resident Joey Chestnut on the Business and Beyond podcast. To check it out, just go to InsideIndianaBusiness.com and click on the subscribe tab. Coming up, big changes at the Fisher's Test Kitchen, how the concept is propelling startup restaurateurs to that next level. Well, a new major player in primary care is entering the Indianapolis market, and some changes at the Fisher's Test Kitchen. Just a couple of the stories our partners at the Indianapolis Business Journal are working on this week, and we get details now from IBJ editor Leslie Weidenbender. And Leslie, is always welcome.
Thank you so much. The
Fisher's Test Kitchen, I think one of the interesting stories over the last number of years, kind of an entrepreneurial kitchen, if you will, for future restaurateurs. And you've got a story coming up this week. There's some changes afoot.
So the original 3 restaurants, Natural State Provisions, Ko-Rob, and Little Dumplings, have moved out. 2 of them have moved on. Little Dumplings is at the Garage now, and Ko-Rob is at Castleton Mall. The Natural State Provisions may reopen someplace else, but there are 3 new restaurants in there. There are Gordito's Rust Belt Tacos, Queenie's, and One Trick Pony.
Good. That's good. And actually, I was there not long ago, and I saw a couple of those in there. And again, I guess that's in keeping with that whole idea of churning through, of launching these ideas.
Yeah, that was the idea, was to move restaurants through, to give them an opportunity to test their menus and then to move on. They are changing things up a little bit. Greg Howe and Neil Brown are now involved, veteran restaurateurs, and they are coming up with concepts and then looking for chefs to implement those concepts.
Yeah, interesting story there. Urban forests in Marion County, I don't think of Marion County as having them. They do, certainly. There's been a catalog, and a lot of these urban forests are in private hands, right?
The Indiana Forest Alliance has cataloged and rated any piece of land that's at least an acre that's wooded. There are 39,000 acres of wooded land in Marion County, and 85% of it is in private hands.
Wow, that is a huge number, surprising.
That makes a difference too, because it's less protected when it's not part of a park or a preserve. And so what the Indiana Forest Alliance wants to do is find ways to protect more of this land so that it's not lost in the future to development. Hey,
one other story. Healthcare is certainly a big piece of the Indiana economy. A new player in primary care entering the Indianapolis market, right?
Yeah, VILLAGEMD is actually a company that was started by a former Anthem executive. They have teamed up with Walgreens. Walgreens actually now is the majority owner of the company, and they are going to be opening Walgreens / Village Medical Clinics, so that Walgreens is really going to become as much a healthcare provider as they are a drugstore.
Wow. Wow, new entry into the market. Great stuff as always in the IBJ. You can check it out this weekend. Leslie Weidenbender, is always great to see you.
Thanks so much, Gary.
All right. Well, construction has begun on a $63 million project that will bring nearly 250 single-family units to Fishers. Indianapolis-based developer Thompson Thrift Residential says SLATE at Fishers will offer luxury housing in a build-for-rent community. Development located on 25 acres in the southeast quadrant of I-69 and 116th Street near IKEA. Thompson Thrift says SLATE at Fishers District will consist of farmhouse-style 1-, 2-, and 3-bedroom villas, along with 3 3 and 4 bedroom townhomes. Our partners at IBJ report that as part of the project, a public park and paved trail will provide direct pedestrian and bike access to Fishers District. And I'll be right back after this. Stay with us. Well, coming up next week, I will sit down with Indiana Governor Eric Holcomb for an extended interview. We will talk about the state of the Indiana economy, economic development in 2021, but importantly, what might be ahead for next year. That's coming up next week. Thanks for joining us. I'm Gerry Dick. Go out and make it a successful week.